Welcome to Theme 2, Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course. We're looking at rights and responsibilities within the legal system. In particular, how does the court system work in the UK? In the last video, you would have looked at the definitions of the judiciary and the separation of powers. You would have also looked at the roles and qualities of a judge. In this part of the session, you'll be looking at how do you become a judge and comparing the system between the USA and the UK. We'll also have an opportunity to do a 4-mark question and mark an exemplar together. How do you become a judge? These are the stages of appointment in the UK. Number 1, there is an advertisement. This often exists in major newspapers such as The Times. Roles can also be advertised by one of the outreach events organised by the Commission, where they would explain the process to interested parties. In summary, there's 2 ways that the job can be advertised: on major newspapers such as The Times, or during outreach events organised by the Commission, where they explain the process to those interested in the position. The second stage, application. Once a party or a person is interested and happy they satisfy the requirements, they must complete a 9-page application with references. Stage 3, interview. Depending on what role is being filled, this could involve taster sessions and role-play workshops, more common for lower court judges. A more senior judicial role is likely to involve a panel interview. Stage 4, consultation. Once all the information is gathered, the Commission deliberate and final checks are made. Those suitable have their names put forward as suitable applicants. Stage 5, appointment. Traditionally appointed by the Lord Chancellor and the Queen. This is more a formality based on the recommendations of the Commission. As you can see here, the Commission plays a big role in the appointment of judges in the UK. This Commission is independent and not tied up to any of the 3 bodies that exist in the separation of powers. What I mean by that is that the Commission is not influenced by the judiciary, executive and the legislature. On the right-hand side here in blue is the USA. On the left-hand side here in red is the UK. Any comments that come up in red refer to the UK, and any comments that come up in blue refer to the USA. In the UK, separation of powers exists between the judiciary, legislature and the executive. This means that a judge's role is separated from the government and parliament. In the UK, judges are appointed by an independent judicial appointments commission, as mentioned on the previous slide. Candidates are selected on their abilities and experience. People must apply to be a judge, allowing fair and open competition. In the UK, judges cannot be a member of a political party. They cannot have a political position and are not elected. Another thing to note in the UK is once a judge is appointed, they are judged for life. This system of appointing judges differs to the USA. In the USA, judges can also be voted through elections. Judges can run as part of a political party in elections. In addition, in the USA, a governor of a state or a legislator chooses or appoints a judge. A governor of a state would be similar to a local councillor. Furthermore, in many states in the USA, they run retention elections. These determine whether a judge should continue to serve. Finally, in the USA, judges are chosen through merit selections. This means that they are chosen based on past performance. When comparing the 2, we can see that the UK tries to ensure that the legislature, judiciary and executive have powers that are separated and independent of one another. However, in the USA, legislators and those who work for the state are often involved in appointing the judge, meaning that there's more of a merge of the 3 bodies. Furthermore, in the UK, a judge is a judge for life once they're appointed. However, in the USA, retention elections determine whether a judge should continue to serve. Also in the UK, judges cannot belong to a political party and cannot hold a political position. This is very different to the USA because judges are voted through elections and can run as part of political parties. Again, we can see that in the USA, there isn't a clear, distinct separation of powers between the judiciary, legislature and the executive. Furthermore, judges are chosen through merit selections based on their past performance. However, in the case of the UK, a judicial appointments commission selects judges based on abilities and experience, as opposed to past performance of the judge. This means that a judge might have been a barrister or a solicitor in the past and has a lot of legal experience and knowledge. Let's read through the exemplar together. Consider how the appointment systems described in Source G differ from the concepts and principles that relate to the judiciary in the UK. It's a 4-mark question. The UK and USA are very different in the sense that judges are not elected by the electorate, like the partisan elections. Also, a judge is not allowed to have a membership of a political group or a political job or position. And it's for life, not for a few years like the merit selection. Judges are kept apart from the political process compared to the USA process. At this point, you should pause the video and mark it yourself. What would you give them out of 4? Does it include 2 points? Is each point clearly explained? Is there evidence from the source? Is there a range of keywords being used? What mark would you give this? And would you give them a what went well and an EBI? What would they be? This is how I marked it. I would say that the student really needs to work on structure, because when you're comparing two things, always use the term whereas between the 2 points that you're making. So for example, in this situation, you're comparing the UK and the USA's process of recruiting judges. In your points, you should make it very clear whether you're talking about the UK when you're making your point or the USA. In your explanation, you should be then looking at the other country's process. I'll show an example of where the student has made that mistake. The UK and USA are very different in the sense that judges are not elected by the electorate like the partisan elections. At no point does the student mention which country they're talking about. They say judges are not elected by the electorate. Do they mean in the UK or the USA? They then say like the partisans' elections. Again, do they mean the UK or the USA? It's unclear. The response is almost merged together. We don't know whether they're talking about the same country or two different countries. Just by using the word whereas, this person could have made their response much clearer. For example, this student could have said, the UK and USA are very different in the sense that in the UK, judges are not elected by the electorate, whereas in the USA, they use partisan elections. They then could have developed this point, explaining what partisan elections are and quoting information from source G. However, somewhere in here we can see that a point is being made. It's true that this point is unclear, and it's true that this point hasn't properly been explained. So at this point, an examiner might give her 1 mark. However, bear in mind another examiner may not award this mark. In the second part of this person's response, they do not use the term whereas. This makes the comparison unclear. They say also a judge is not allowed to have a membership of a political group or a political job or position. And it's for life, not for a few years like the merit selection. Again, it's unclear which country this person's talking about. A judge is not allowed to have membership of a political group or a political job or position. Which country do they mean? The UK or the USA? It's very unclear. And it's for life. What do we mean by the term it's? And where is the role for life? UK or USA? Again, really unclear. As you can see here, it's also unclear where this person's talking about. Is it the UK or the USA? Again, these points could be further developed by using language from the source itself. However, in here we can see that some points are being made. I don't think those points are very clear at all. We don't know which country this person's talking about. We don't know which points are being compared to which, and we don't know whether explanations are really taking place. An examiner may award a mark for the point about the fact that judges cannot be members of political groups or a political job or position. Like I said, another examiner may not give this mark because it's unclear which country this person is referring to. The student has made a mistake here because they've confused merit selection and retention elections. What this person probably meant was judges wouldn't have their job for a few years due to retention elections, not merit selection. However, the examiner might also give another mark. This person has referred to the fact that judges do have their position and are judges for life. Another examiner may not give this mark because, like I've mentioned earlier, it's unclear whether this person's talking about the USA or the UK. Finally, the response finishes with the following sentence. Judges are kept apart from the political process compared to the USA process. Here you can see that there is a bit of a comparison made, and we can make the assumption that the first part of this sentence refers to the UK, because they've specifically said compared to the USA process. However, it seems to sound like a repeated point. As you can see up here, it says a judge is not allowed to have a membership of a political group and political jobs or positions. Again, this person goes on to say judges are kept apart from the political process compared to the USA process. Some may argue that this is a repeated point. However, the student might have been trying to explain their point and develop their point even further. But it's hard to know whether this person's actually explaining their point or just making a repeated point. This is because there's a lack of connectives. Had this person used the term because or therefore to further demonstrate that they're delving deeper and explaining their point, this individual may have gotten that mark. Another thing to bear in mind is the lack of key terms. This individual could have used the term the separation of powers to really show off their citizenship knowledge and understanding. On this basis, this student will get 2 to 3 marks. I would personally give this student 2 marks. Looking at what we've discussed, pause the video and see if you can write a perfect response to this question using the information from the source. Now let's look at how this would have been a stronger answer. Remember, start off with connectives to sequence your points. Then move on to connectives that clearly show that you are explaining your point. Also use connectives to show that you are using evidence. Remember, examiners will have hundreds of questions to mark. You should clearly signpost to them that you are making a point, that you're giving an example to back up your point, that you're explaining your point, and that in 8-mark questions you're evaluating your points. In a 4-mark question, you're not required to evaluate your point. You're simply required to make the point, provide evidence from a source, and explain your point. Connectives are the best way to signpost to your examiner that you are doing all 3 of these things. So this is the type of answer that I would perceive to be a strong response, where someone is awarded the full 4 marks. Firstly, so that's our first connective, a sequencing connective, showing that we are sequencing our arguments. So this is our first argument. The appointment system for judges in the UK differ from that in the USA, as in the UK, judges must apply for the role, which is usually advertised, and decisions to employ a judge is taken by a commission. Whereas in the USA, and as you can see, the term whereas shows that you are clearly comparing the UK system to the USA system. Judges are often voted in by the electorate in elections such as the partisan elections and retention elections outlined in source G. As you can see there, I've just referred to the source and information from the source itself. Secondly, in the UK, the separation of powers is a key feature of the system of judges and courts in order to make sure that power is not abused by one body. Whereas in the USA, judges are appointed by the state governor or legislator, which merges the power of the 3 bodies. This would be a very strong 4-mark response because you've compared the UK and USA and you've made it very clear to the examiner that those comparisons are being made, that you understand the difference between the selection of judges in both countries. You're also using key language such as separation of powers and demonstrating an understanding of what separation of powers actually means. There's words such as legislator to support your citizenship understanding. There's clear structure when sequencing connectives are used. And in each case, you can see that points are being further developed by the use of the term whereas. There's mention of the source itself. And there's also other points that could be made, such as a judge is a judge for life in the UK, whereas in the USA, retention elections can dictate how long a judge continues to have their role for. You can also refer to the fact that in the UK, no judge is allowed to be a member of a political party and needs to stay neutral. However, in the USA, judges often run as part of a political party. So there's many points that could come out of this source. I've chosen 2 points, but you are more than welcome to choose more than just those 2 points and draw upon those comparisons to the UK. I hope this makes it clear to you how to write a strong 4-mark response. We've just come to the end of this session where you've been looking at how you become a judge, exploring the appointment system between the USA and the UK, as well as having an opportunity to practice a 4-mark question. I hope this has been helpful. The next video of this session will be looking at the difference between Crown Courts, Magistrates' Courts and Tribunals.